So it has a brew. Oh, this is actually Twining's English breakfast tea, and this is the fucking shit. It's just the best tea I think I've ever had. It does come in tea bags, and it isn't cheap. It's about £7 for 2 boxes, and the boxes aren't huge. I think 100 tea bags, but they are absolutely amazing. They're probably the best. They are the best tea I think I've ever had. Better than Yorkshire tea, better than any cheap shit you get, better than PG Tips, not other muck that claims to be really good. It is quality. It was just insane. Unfortunately, it's still not good if you use one of those shitty constant boiler things, which we have at work, which is a bit crap. So I usually use cheap tea bags for that. But wow, tea straight out of a kettle, or water straight out of a kettle onto a tea bag. Wow. So, before the news, I'm going to be moving down to Truro for a temporary time. Due to work. One of my colleagues has been seconded, and I'm going to go down to Truro, which is in the deep depths of Cornwall, which means I'm going to be living with my parents during the week, which means I'm kind of going to have to put some things on hold that I was going to do, including the IP Fryer videos and stuff like that. I'm going to still back up to Plymouth on the weekends Friday evenings I'm going to try. So next weekend I'm going to come up and I'm going to try and get some other videos done, which might mean that brew time kind of doesn't happen next week because I might run out of time to edit and upload everything together and get it all sorted. I am definitely going to try and do an IP5 video next week. That is definitely going to happen. And maybe a brew time, I don't know. The problem I have is filming space, really. I can do it in my parents' place, but it's a little bit echoey, it's a little bit shit. I can't really have a quiet space to do it in. It's only going to be temporary, only hopefully for a month, and if I end up moving down there permanently, which it sounds like I might be, I'll then end up getting my own place, which actually will be better than my current place here, because it doesn't mean I have to spend more money, but it does mean I'll have my own dedicated space and stuff like that. Things like setup tours and stuff. My setup tour might have to be put on hold. Things like Windows Home Server might have to be put on hold. I might be able to do some filming in other locations, perhaps, but I don't know yet. We'll just have to see how it goes and kind of go from there. Like I say, next weekend I'm gonna do an IP5 video. I'm gonna do the IP Fire Eco video. I'm gonna do a review of that and some other bits. Because that really needs to be done ideally before the end of the month, really. That's that. So this week has kind of been CES. It's not kind of been. CES has happened. Unfortunately, I've been out of the loop a little bit. A lot with CES. But to be honest, CES isn't as big as it was last year. I don't think the hype surrounding it certainly wasn't as big. Nobody on Twitter is really talking about it too much. There's some things that came out of CES that I'm really pumped for, which I'll discuss in a minute. But generally, CES this year has been pretty shit. It certainly hasn't been the greatest, and this can be for various different things. A lot of reasons is because a lot of companies do their own things now. They do their own press conferences. I know Samsung definitely does, HTC does, Microsoft does. All these companies do different press conferences at different places, and they more specifically target certain trade shows, not because CES is just basically everything, like all the electronics you can ever think of goes to one place. Whereas a lot of companies now are moving away from that and going towards things like the mobile one, which is in Barcelona, I think it is. And there's a few other ones around and about. There's one in Germany, and generally vendors are going specifically, they're targeting specific ones, and they're not doing their whole big blowout at CES because it is very expensive to do. However, there are some really, really good stuff that came out of CES this year. One of the so there was a couple of trends that kind of went on. Steam boxes. Steam boxes in abundance there, which is really cool. That's really good to see. Which means third parties are going to create loads of different hardware, which is really good. And the only trouble I see with that is that then you may get some fragmentation with operating systems and stuff like that, and also driver support. They're all going to have to pull together to actually get the drivers up to date if they're going to be running it in Linux. And depending upon how, I have not played with SteamOS yet because it's still in its beta phase, and to be honest, I'm not too fussed about it for a minute because I still have my PC, And the truth be told, I don't really have enough time to do it because I have to work during the week. And not only do I have to work during the week, but I also have to cook and clean and all the domestic stuff that you have to do when you live in a house. Well, not on your own, but away from your parents. So actually, next week I might be able to get some more stuff done in the evenings because that means I can play around with stuff. However, my main machine is going to be staying up here. So, but yeah, Steambox is in abundance there. It's really interesting to see. A manufacturer's getting on board with it. One of the other things is 4K TVs. 4K TVs come at your arse. Jesus fuck. It's like 4K is. I mean, 4K is easy enough to do. 4K TVs now are. They're going to come down in price over the next probably year or so, as we saw with HD, 3D, things like that. It'll come down in price. Maybe in like a year's time, you'll be able to pick up a 500 quid TV, 32, 40-inch TV that'll support 4K. Which is good. The trouble is there's kind of no point for 4K because nothing can really push out 4K at the moment. The PlayStation 4 will eventually be able to support 4K, which is great. It won't be able to support 4K gaming. I seriously doubt they will be able to do that. If they do, then you're probably going to be looking at like 15 frames a second. Even most PCs can push out 4K resolution, and if they do, you're going to have to be looking at like 4 GTX Titans to actually push that through. 4K is not 4 times 1080p, it's slightly less than that, but it's kind of that kind of scale. So you're having to scale up by 4 almost. So that's kind of quite difficult for people to do. The other problem we have as well is for 4K content is distribution, because especially in the UK, our broadband speeds are atrocious usually, unless you live in a city, and even then the latency's crap, and generally it's pretty shit. So 4K content being streamed to the home, which is pretty much the only way you can pretty much get 4K content, unless you manage to do it on a Blu-ray system or something like that. It's kind of, there is no 4K content, and there won't be for quite a while yet. Obviously, there might be new mediums being created to actually allow 4K content to be streamed. Well, Sony created their own kind of codec, which allows you to have a lot more. You can have a compressed. The media can be compressed a lot more, and it will allow for 4K, which is really good. But things like Blu-ray only supports 50 gigs worth of space, and to be honest, most Blu-rays aren't even full up. If you actually just take the film on its own, you could easily put a 4K film on a Blu-ray drive without an issue. It's just getting a Blu-ray player to actually play the 4K content and stream it and put it to that big screen. And the problem we will have is processing power, because that means you're going to have a beastie processor in whatever device you have to push to a TV. So yeah, it's It'll be interesting over the coming year when 4K TVs come down in price. I mean, they're already coming down in price stupidly anyway. I mean, you can pick up a 4K TV now for about $2,000, which actually isn't bad considering a year or two ago it was like 10, 15, 50,000 for a TV, 4K TV. But so there is really no need for 4K for a minute, because the distribution, the content delivery isn't really there. 4K also isn't. 4K looks really good. If you've ever been to like a cinema and seen 4K, 4K looks amazing. Most cinemas now have 4K resolutions, especially things like the View do, Odeon do. They have like proper 4K huge screens, and on that size screen, it makes a huge difference. You can really notice the difference between 1080p and 4K. It's just amazing. But with smaller TVs, the clarity isn't so much better that you would say, yes, that's really, really good. It's not. I mean, it is better than 1080p. Obviously, there's almost 4 times as many pixels. But on that kind of size screen, it's not going to pop out as much as it did from standard def to high def when we saw it back in the day. And it also will depend on the bitrate. If the bitrate of something is going to be crap, then it's going to look shit anyway. It'll be really interesting to see where it goes. I mean, the 8K is also another thing as well. 8K is going to, was a thing that was shown off at CES. And the thing is with like pixel densities like that, it kind of then gets to the point where it doesn't really matter. You then go into bits where your eyes can't really distinguish the difference between 4K and 8K and 16K and all these different bits and pieces. But I mean, obviously, if the price of things are going to go down in terms of how many pixels you can mash into an LCD panel, then great. I mean, that's fantastic. And if it also means it's going to push down the price of 1080p screens, to, which the 1080p screens are insanely cheap anyway. You can pick up like a 1080p 32-inch TV for a lot less than 200 quid. You can even pick up a Sony one for 200 quid, for Christ's sake. And they're insanely good panels in those, and Samsung's as well. I do also have to apologise about the noise that you can see on the screen. The ISO on my camera is stupidly high, because for some bizarre reason, if it was on 800 ISO, I would just be really dark, and usually I'm really light. I don't know what's going on. Probably the brightness settings need changing. So I'm on 1600 ISO, which is probably why it's all like grainy and fuck and so I do apologise about that. So the other thing, well, two other things that kind of came out of CES that seemed not necessarily seemed to be a trend. Was, well, I mean, there was wearable tech, there was that. There was lots of wearable tech going around, lots of smartwatches, lots of Fitbit alternatives, things like that. Intel really getting in on the action with that because they want to try and get their fingers in many pies, because they realise that PCs are not declining in number, but declining in sales, and so they kind of want to still be able to keep up with the market and still make money. So they're looking at wearable tech now, so watches and low-powered stuff, which is really cool. And the other thing was modular stuff. So there's, well, the key thing, well, the major thing that looks amazing is Razer Christine. Razer had a device at CES that essentially is completely modular. You can see it behind me there. And essentially you have a tower bit in the middle that has a motherboard on it, and then from that you've got buses that you can then plug shit into. So if you want an extra SSD, you can put an extra SSD in there. If you want to swap out USB 2 for USB 3, you can do that. If you want to swap out Thunderbolt, you can do that. If you don't want an LCD panel on the front, you can swap it with a power switch and some USB. If you really want Firewire, it's just completely modular. It's saying like you want to swap out your graphics card, you could do that, and it looks amazing. It's a really interesting concept, and it will allow you to upgrade your PC just effortlessly. You won't have to worry about fiddling around inside and all that other crap. You just wazz it out, put a new one in, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, job done. I mean, it's really exciting, and I really like the idea. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is things like driver support, and how the fuck that bus system is going to work. I mean, I'm going to assume they're going to try and put essentially what is PCIe through a proprietary bus, which will be fine, but it could cause some problems. I don't quite know how they're going to work it and how they're going to do it. It looks really interesting though, and if it means you can swap out hard drives left, right, and centre, that's really good. I'm also a little bit concerned as to how much it'll cost, because if Razer actually produced this, it's going to cost a stupid amount. I mean, it's going to cost a stupid amount of money to buy anyway. But the individual components are going to be proprietary to that specific system, and so they're going to be insanely expensive. So things like a GTX Titan, which is stupidly expensive anyway, you're going to have to pay a premium, probably an extra 200 quid, just to put that case around it and to actually convert the bus from PCIe to their proprietary bus on the Razer Christine. So yeah, it's a really good idea. Whether or not it'll catch on, whether or not it'll actually, work well, I don't know. Obviously, there's a driver support issue as well. So when you plug something in, it's then Windows is probably going to shout at you and go, "Oh no, I don't actually have the drivers for this. I don't know what to do with it." With a bit of luck, Razer will actually produce or work with their vendors, their third-party vendors, some people like AMD and Nvidia and Intel and things like that, to get their driver support really, really high for their specific system, because I suspect the way the drivers will work will be slightly different to if you can actually plug something directly into a PCIe slot. I don't know. They haven't really released much more information other than a kind of ish demo, but it is really cool. It looks really funky. It looks amazing. But whether or not it'll actually come to fruition, I don't know. There was a project, I can't remember what project last year was. It was Project Flora or something that Razer did. But basically, it was a handheld tablet thing, and it was pretty shit when it actually came to be shipped. I mean, it was essentially a tablet that was a gaming console, and it had like sticks on it. But the trouble was, the battery life was crap. It got ridiculously hot, and it was just generally shit. It was running Windows 8 as well, and it wasn't that great. And it was really expensive, and nobody really bought it. It was a really cool idea, but it just kind of went meh and just sort of fell over really. So yes, if I had the money, I probably would go out and buy Razor Christine because it would save me a lot of time and aggro, and it also looks fucking sexual. I mean, how good does that look? That looks just so good. The other thing that happened, and this has been prototyped before, was modular phone design. ZTE created a modular phone, which basically means you can swap out anything. So if you don't like the camera, yeah, you can change that. You can change it into something else. If you don't like the battery capacity, you can upgrade the battery capacity. If you don't like the if you want to upgrade Bluetooth to the next version of Bluetooth, if you want to upgrade Wi-Fi, you can do that. Pretty much everything you could possibly think of, things like memory, things like the LCD, if you don't like that, you can swap it all out and put your own shit, well, not put your own shit in, but put their own proprietary stuff in there, and it looks really, really cool. Would I buy such a device? Probably not, because I would just kind of buy a device and then after a year or whatever sell it and buy a new one. It's a really interesting concept, and it would then mean that you could have pretty much a customizable phone to your own specifications to what you want to do. If you don't want a fully spec'd, 24 megapixel sensor, you can downgrade it, save yourself some money, and all sorts of other bits and pieces. Swap out 3G for 4G, stuff like that. Swap out a high-res LCD. Really cool idea. The only trouble is it will be proprietary, and the trouble is if it ends up not being very popular, they'll discontinue it, and then all the parts will be really difficult to get hold of. So it's a good idea. It's a great idea, but probably not practical in the real world. I don't think it's really going to be one of those things that will really catch on. Simply for the fact that it is kind of too proprietary, and I don't think enough people really want that kind of customization. I've had to just turn a light on me because it's actually starting to get quite dark outside. It's still daylight, pretty much. Well, it's kind of dusk, I guess. But the lighting's really crap, and it is my desk lamp, which is why it's yellow and awful. Yeah, and so that was pretty much it for CES, really. I mean, there was lots of 3D printers, there was lots of Windows 8 devices, there was loads of tablets, there was loads of TVs, there was loads of stuff. And lots of wearable tech, but to be honest, I don't think CES is as relevant as it used to be. Things with CES was that if it was at CES, it pretty much was a trend then for the rest of the year. Loads of stuff was going to come out, and that was going to be that. I think we already know that smartwatches are going to be a thing. That's already going to be a thing. Oh, that reminds me, actually, Razer brought out a smartwatch, which looks really quite cool. Razer seem to be doing lots of weird stuff, which is really, really interesting. I mean, I personally don't like Razer hardware, well, in terms of keyboards and mice, stuff like that, because they're generally pretty shit. You pay a lot of money for what is essentially a piece of shit. But things like the Razer notebook they do, I can't remember what the hell that's bloody called now. The Razer notebook, if I had the money, I would go and buy that tomorrow. Lenovo also brought a new X1 card, and that looks fucking amazing. Again, if I had the money, I would go and buy that tomorrow. It just looks so good. It is a Lenovo ThinkPad, but I just love the look of the Lenovo ThinkPads. I've got one in behind me here, and it's an old school one. It's a T60, and it's just so good. The new ones aren't as good as the older ones, but the new ones still are just so good. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully there will be a brew time next week, but I can't make any guarantees. It might even be slightly late. My problem isn't really uploading, because my parents' place will be shit at uploading. I'm not even going to attempt to do that, so I'll upload it at work. So uploading's not the problem, it's the encoding and the editing. I'm only going to bring my laptop down with me, and that's my shitty Vio, and it'll blow out of his arse when I want to encode anything. So I kind of don't really want to do that. I mean, I might just remote into my desktop up here and try and do that, but I don't know, it could be just a bit of a pain in the ass. So I'm definitely going to come back up next weekend and try and do an IP5 video, so that's going to happen. And yeah, so apart from that, I shall catch you in a later video.